There's a crow that lives near a bus stop I pass sometimes. Every morning, dozens of people walk under its tree. It watches all of them and reacts to almost none. But there's one man, older, slow, always carrying the same paper bag. And the moment that crow sees him round the corner, it drops down to the low branch and starts calling. Not at the crowd, at him. Everyone else's scenery. He's an event. So here's the thing I can't stop turning over. That bird isn't reacting to a human. It's reacting to that human, which means somewhere in its head, it's running a sorting system we usually assume animals don't have. It's deciding person by person who's worth approaching and who isn't. How does a wild animal decide which human is safe enough to trust? If you like pulling apart the hidden machinery behind things that look simple on the surface, a like and a subscribe genuinely keep this channel alive and let me keep making this kind of breakdown. That's the whole pitch. Back to the crow. We tend to think of ourselves as one big category from the animal side of things. Human. One label, one meaning, threat or not threat. But that's almost certainly not how a lot of them experience us, especially the ones living in our cities. To an animal that spent its whole life inside our routines, we're not a species. We're a cast of characters. There's the one who scatters seed on the same bench every afternoon, and the body learns to relax when that shape appears. There's the one who chases, who lunges, who throws things, and that shape gets filed somewhere darker. There's the loud one whose movements never quite make sense, so the safe move is distance. There's the one who walks straight through without slowing. Eyes forward, predictable as a passing car, and predictable turns out to be its own kind of safe. And there's the shape that once, somewhere, lined up with pain, and that memory doesn't fade just because the danger did. None of this requires the animal to think that person is kind. That's us projecting our own warm vocabulary onto something older and colder, and in a way, smarter. What the animal is doing is closer to a quiet, constant question it never puts into words. When this pattern shows up, what usually happens to me next? Do I eat? Do I run? Do I survive? Trust from where the animal stands might not be a feeling at all. It might just be a prediction it's been refining its whole life, one human at a time. The word trust is doing a lot of quiet work when we use it about ourselves. For us, it feels emotional, almost moral, a thing you extend to someone who's earned it, tied up with loyalty and warmth and being let down. But strip all that away, down to the oldest layer of the brain, and trust is something much more practical. It's a forecast. It's the brain saying, based on everything so far, I can predict what this one does next, and the prediction isn't danger. We run that calculation constantly, and mostly we don't notice. You decide whether to trust a stranger on a quiet street using almost no real information. How far away they are, how fast they're moving, where their eyes go, the set of their shoulders, whether the situation around them fits or feels off. You've made the call before any conscious thought finishes forming. Underneath it sits a question so old it predates language itself. Is this thing going to hurt me? An animal reading a human across a parking lot is asking exactly that. We just dress our version up in nicer words, and animals are startlingly good at the reading. Work by John Marsluff on crows suggested they can recognize individual human faces and hold on to them. Crows are almost spitefully good at remembering whoever once wronged them. Doug Levy's research on mockingbirds pointed the same way. The birds singled out the specific person who had been getting too close to their nest and reacted to that one human differently from the dozens of others walking by. Researchers also talk about something called flight initiation distance, basically how close a creature lets a threat get before it bolts. And that distance isn't fixed. Animals adjust it depending on who's approaching and how. The bird isn't just sensing threat, it's grading it. Now stretch that ability across an entire city and something interesting happens. Urban animals don't just live near us, they live inside the machinery of our habits. to a pigeon or a fox or a raccoon. We're almost a kind of weather, a force that arrives on a schedule. We show up at the same hours. We make noise. We drop food and don't notice. We ignore some of them completely and feed others by hand. We open the bins, build the walls, block the paths. Sometimes we hurt them. Sometimes, without meaning to, we save them. So the city becomes a school, and the animals are paying closer attention than we ever give them credit for. They learn the timetable of a neighborhood, when the cafe empties its trays, when the street goes quiet. They learn which corners are safe and which to avoid. They learn that one kind of movement means nothing and another means run. They learn which humans are reliable and which are a coin toss. They're not memorizing us out of affection, they're building a working map of which patterns keep them alive. Has an animal ever singled you out? Not people in general, but you specifically? Treated you like you were different from everyone else around you? Drop that story below. I read them, and those are the ones that stay with me. Here's what I think we usually miss. The moment we actually notice an animal stepping toward a person, taking food from a hand, lingering instead of fleeing, isn't the beginning of anything. It's the last rung on a ladder the animal started climbing long before we were watching. The first rung is almost invisible. The animal just doesn't flee quite as fast as it used to. Then, on some later day, it lets the human hold still nearby without bolting. Then it keeps eating while that shape stays in view, which is a bigger concession than it looks. Eating means dropping your guard. Then it closes a little of the distance on its own. Then, maybe it does something stranger. It tries to hold a human's attention on purpose. And in the rare, extreme cases, the ones that make the videos, it tries to steer that attention toward a problem it can't solve alone. Every one of those steps was paid for by the one before it. Nothing was skipped, and every step costs something, because the stakes here are not gentle. An animal that misjudges which human to approach can be hurt, trapped, or killed for the mistake. There's no second guess. So, when a wild creature finally decides to close that gap, it isn't being sweet. It's running a calculation under pressure. Need pushing against fear, memory arguing with instinct, the whole nervous system placing a bet with everything on the table. Trust in the wild is not a warm feeling. It is a risk with a body attached to it, which might explain why we end up looking to some of them almost like something out of a myth. Not because we're magical, but because we do things nothing else in their world can do. We pull metal open. We cut through plastic that won't tear. We lift a lid that won't lift. We move water. We make food appear out of nowhere. We rearrange the landscape itself, bend the world to our hands in ways no fox or crow could ever manage. To an animal, that's not kindness. It's closer to power without explanation. But the biology underneath stays simple. The animal doesn't need to understand us. It doesn't need a theory of what we are. It only needs to have learned through small, repeated evidence, one shallow and durable fact. These creatures change situations, sometimes for the worse, sometimes against all odds for the better. So maybe animals don't trust humanity at all. They trust patterns. They trust places that have stayed safe. They trust memories that haven't betrayed them yet. They trust the small proofs that pile up, one quiet day at a time. And in a crisis, when the old answers stop working, that little stack of evidence can become the whole difference between running from us and coming toward us. Being trustworthy to a wild animal was never about seeming kind. It's about being predictable enough that for one moment the fear loosens its grip and lets something else through. Has an animal ever decided you were different, recognized you, trusted you, treated you unlike everyone else? Tell me about it down in the comments. If this gave you a new way to see something you'd half noticed before, drop a like so it reaches more people who think this way. And the video on screen right now is a good place to go next.